In this video, I'm going to be covering how to enter in an item ID as well as a category ID. So to start things off, I'm going to come up here to my inventory control, my master files section, and click on categories. Now the reason I'm doing categories first is because each item has to be associated with a category. So if I'm creating an item ID and I don't have a category ID to associate it with, I'm going to have problems creating that item ID. So I'll explain that further down the road when I get into the item screen. But to start things off here, if I were to create a new category ID, I would click on this N button or hit Control N on my keyboard. I'm going to show you one that I've entered in previously called temp. It's for all my tempered glass. So down here, my item type, I have set as homogeneous standard. That's what most companies will be using. This homogeneous with remnants will keep track of small pieces of glass that you would normally just throw out and not count in your inventory again. So let's say you have a 3 square inch piece of glass that you'd normally just walk out to the dumpster and throw away. Well, this homogeneous with remnants would keep track of that 3 square inch and put it back in your inventory. So that causes some problems with inventory discrepancy, but some people like to keep track of those little things and have it in there, so that's why we have an option for it. Down here, the non-inventory type, that is for things like discounts, freight charges, a delivery charge, obviously just a non-inventory item that you can sell to a person or have it at least appear on a sales order. Over here, the item form, all glass will be area items because you can measure it in a square footage, right? The widget items are things that you usually just do in a piece, like it might be a door hinge or a handle or a few screws or things like that. So I'm going to come down here now. The stocked by factor is in square foot versus piece. So every time I receive in any item associated with this category, it will be stocked into my inventory as the square foot. Same thing goes with costed by factor. It will be associated as cost per square foot or cost per piece. Those are your options there. Default price factor you can set as square foot a piece as well. Also a sales order minimum square foot. So you can set up a minimum square footage for each category. Let's say you have a 3 square foot minimum and a salesperson is entering in a sales order and puts 2 square feet of item A, which is in this category. That person will receive an error that will pop up and say, you cannot sell less than the minimum square footage. This minimum square footage must be 3 feet or more. The same thing goes with the overall thickness. The category group I'm going to address in another video. It's a little more complicated. And the max base and height, obviously you can set up there. That's usually associated with your cutting table. How many square feet can your cutting table handle at once? Over here we have our items taxable. In this case, I have it checked as yes. A circumstance where you might have that unchecked would be like with freight or a delivery charge. You don't want to charge tax for that service. Our items discountable, I have this checked as yes, so every time I enter in discount, this item will be part of that discount. If this were unchecked and I entered in discount, the discount would only take place for items that are discountable. And down here we have our GL accounts. This is where you tell the category ID where to hit certain GL accounts. So for example, you can enter in a specific sales order or sales GL account just for this category if you would like. So you can take a look and say, I want to look at my tempered glass sales GL account, and you can have that enter right here. So you have to fill in these bold ones, which are sales, returns, cost of sales, and inventory asset. And those GL accounts are established under the general ledger, master files, and GL accounts. All right, I'm going to jump over here to the item screen now. Now this item screen is very complicated. There's a lot to it. So I'm going to go over just the basics, the necessities that you need to know to take care of this. So to create a new item, I come up here and click on this N or hit Control N. And I'm going to call this 1/8 inch clear tempered is what I'm doing. So that item ID is up to you. You enter that in. That name is also entered in by you, but it is usually more formal. It's a longer description of the item. So I'm going to type in 1/8 inch clear tempered single light. Now here's where I have to enter in that category ID. So if I didn't have a category ID ready, I would run into problems because that is a bold field, meaning that it is required before I can save this item. But luckily we have that temp already created, and there we go, the tempered glass. This dimension is going to be 1/8 inch, obviously. If this were an insulated unit, let's say an 1/8 inch over an 1/8 inch, then I'd put an 1/8 inch here and an 1/8 inch here, and if I have a default spacer, I would put it right in this field here. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to check outside, center, inside, and mono. What that means is that this piece of glass, this 1/8 inch clear tempered single light, can be placed on an insulated unit on the outside, in the center, on the inside, or mono. So if I were to uncheck this box and try to create an insulated unit and try to put this 1/8 inch clear tempered single light on the outside, I would receive an error because I do not have that checked, meaning I don't have that as an option of a place to put this piece of glass. I'm going to jump down here to this user-defined fields. These opt1 and opt2 are for your optimization software. So if I have opt-away, let's say, and in your opt-away you have set up as 1/8 CLR is for all 1/8 inch clear glass, whether or not it's tempered, because you're going to temper it off after you cut it, obviously. So I'm going to type in 1/8 clear, and that is what my optimizer reads and knows, hey, I'm cutting 1/8 of an inch clear glass right now, and so your optimizer knows exactly what is being cut. Up here on the quick key, if this is an item that you sell often and you don't want to type in 1/8 CLR TEMP on every sales order, you can create a quick key. Let's call it 123, and you can click on there. Oh, it says I'm already using one. Let's do 111, and you type that in. Now on the sales order screen, instead of typing in all of this up here, you can type in 111 in the quick key field, and it'll automatically bring in this item here. Processing schedule will allow you to enter in a default process. Let's say, for example, on this 1/8 inch clear tempered, we always punch holes in it. Well, you can add holes right here. I'm going to show you a better way, in my opinion, to do this as well, and just a little further on in this video. This buyout flag will say, hey, this is tempered glass. We always buy out tempered glass, let's say. So you can always say, hey, this is a buyout. Now, whenever you enter this item into a sales order, it will automatically go to a buyout versus coming from stock. Show pricing just means it'll show the pricing on your sales order. And this unit weight, since we've entered in this 1/8 inch, GlassTrax is smart enough to know, well, an 1/8 inch weighs 1.677 pounds per square foot. And that's just done by clicking in the field and hitting the calculate button. This hide field, right now I'm not going to hide this item because I'm going to start selling it. Versus yes, if I hide this item, then that means I could sell it if I wanted to, but this item is going to be hidden from your reports as well as from your lookups. But I could technically still sell it if I wanted to. This out of service means that even if a sales rep types in the item ID or the quick key right here, the item ID will pop up and it will say, this item is out of service, you cannot sell it. So no matter what, no sales rep can sell it if this is selected. Color and short name are obvious there for you. I'm going to check this tempered box because this is a tempered piece of glass. And what that does now is it means I will have to select a logo or no logo on the sales order now. You can also set up a feature to say that all tempered glass is bought out if you do not have a tempering furnace. And so that feature correlates with this checkbox right here. So that's the basics of this part of the screen. I'm going to jump down here and show you the pricing. Pricing can be set up here, or it can be set up in the sales master files pricing. If I were to create a new pricing matrix for it, I'd click that N button. If I were doing customer specific pricing, I'd enter it in here. If I were doing a customer type pricing or a group of customers that all are on the same price level, I'd enter in that here. If I leave those two blank though, it'll just create a generic pricing matrix for this item. So if I come down here and say my pricing values are in unit prices, I'm not going to do markup or margins. I'm going to charge by the square foot. My price break factor is in the square foot, and I'll explain a little bit about that here in just a second. Over here, just going to keep it as a markup. You can choose markup or margin, and then you can base that on mill cost, average cost, last cost, or mill plus fab. I'm not going to select this use minimum pricing, but you can, and that's pretty obvious what that means as well. I'm going to come down here. Now on this row, you always start with 0 because you can't sell less than 0 square feet. I'm going to jump into this Schedule A, which is a standard size. And on our standard sizes, I'm going to call this, let's say it's $1.95 for a standard size. Now for a non-standard size, we charge $2.25 a square foot. This Schedule C, D, and E, if you turn on the outside center inside pricing, you can have that be outside center and inside and say, well, if it's on the outside of an insulated unit, it's going to be $1.75. If it's on the inside of an insulated unit, it'll be $1.75. But in the middle, if it's a third pane, we charge $1.95. Here's where the price break factor comes into account. So if I type in 100 square feet here, let's say if a customer calls and they order over 100 square feet of this 1/8 inch clear tempered, then I give them a 5-cent discount. And the same goes for here on this base price for the non-standard size. All right, so once that's done, I'm going to hit save, and I'm good to go. Now, if I wanted to add a customer-specific pricing, I would hit N and type in a customer right there. And look, I already have customer-specific pricing because that's the generic pricing. I can come in here, though, and change that and give it to a specific for them. Or I can come down here and say, I have a customer type A, and I'm going to come here and change this for customer type A. All right. Next over, we have a stock sheets. You can create a standard stock size, the ones that you receive in from your vendor. So to do that, we hit this new button or hit Control N again, and we type in. Let's say we do two stock sheets. One of them is a 90 by 130, and the other one is a 90 by 48. So let's say 90 here and 130. If I hit Tab, it auto populates there. Let's say our reorder point is when we get down to 10 pieces of that 90 by 130. We need to order. Our desired level is to have 100 pieces. And our reorder increment is 10 pieces, because let's say there's 10 pieces per case. Now, if you notice, these are not bold fields, so they're not necessary, but they're kind of nice to have that information in here. The default size, I'm going to go ahead and say this is our default size. And now what that means is when I create a sales order, this 90 by 130 is going to automatically populate as my default size to sell to my customers. If you don't want to do that, you can always just keep this as a common size, or as no, this is not a default size. I'm going to say this is our default. I'm going to save. I'm going to add that second stock sheet that we always buy, which I said was a 90 by 48. I'm going to keep this the same right here. And I'm going to say this is just a common size. All right. Once those are entered in, I can exit out of here. This max base height should look familiar. It's just like the category ID screen. You can enter in a max base, max height, and if you can rotate it on your cutting table right there. The raw items is mainly for insulated units. I'll show it to you here. So you can enter in the outside item is, let's say, that 1/8 inch clear tempered. The inside item is a 1/4 inch clear. Now what this will do is it'll calculate, well, if I'm creating a unit that's an 1/8 inch clear over a 1/4 inch clear, then it knows exactly how much square feet it needs to pull from each item to make this insulated unit. Light tasks is where you set up your departments, and I'll go over this in another video because this is pretty complex as well. Estimated times, I'll show it here. It just lets you say, hey, for this 1/2 inch clear, in order to cut a square foot of this, it's 4.1 seconds, and it just kind of gives you a better idea for scheduling purposes. How long will each item take to do what based on the square footage? All right, I'm going to go ahead and save this. And it's going to ask me if I want to stock this in all warehouses. I'm going to say yes. And it's going to ask me about costs. I'm going to say continue here. I'm going to skip this and exit out. All right. So let me pull that back in just to kind of review here. That 1/4 inch clear or 1/8 inch clear tempered. There's everything here. And the last button I wanted to cover over here was this item build-up screen. The item build-up screen is relatively new. It's kind of nice to have everything in here. I've added here the hole and a bevel as a default process on here. If I want to get rid of them, I can just hit this X here. So this will look what your items will look like first. It will just have the item here. If you want to add a process to be a default process, you can click on this button. If you need to add a spacer or another inner layer, you can add those here. Or if you need to add a light to create an insulated unit, and then you can also put in a default spacer thickness there as well. So if I wanted to add a process, let's say this is a default process, we're going to do that bevel again, and we're also going to do, let's click on tempered here, down at the very bottom. All right, so bevel and tempering, those are my two processes, so I'm going to say okay. Now what will happen here is whenever I enter in this 1/8 inch clear tempered on a sales order, because of those default processes, I will get a pop-up box that says, this item has default processes of this bevel and tempering. Would you like to apply these to this item? And you can just click yes, and it automatically applies that to your process or to your sales order without having to go into your processing and add those in manually. So that's how you create an item ID and a category ID. I went over the basics here just because it is complicated, but there's a lot of simplicity to it as well. So if you keep things simple and get these items set up correctly, the system will flow very smoothly. It's just a matter of making sure everything is set up correctly for you.